You're watching LMCC.
Hi, I'm Kellie Murphy-Ringate, Fire Marshal and Public Educator for the Excelsior Fire District, and welcome to First Responder TV, your local safety source, featuring training exercises, safety tips, and much more. Here's what's coming up on First Responder TV. The Mound Fire Department shares their rich history and hopes for the future as they celebrate their 100th year. The Long Lake Fire Department invites us to a controlled house burn training exercise on Safety Source. We'll say goodbye to everyone's favorite master of avoiding danger, the LMCC safety expert. Joining me now is Fire Chief Greg Pederson and retired firefighter Jack Farness. And today we are going to talk about the Centennial, but we are going to start by talking about you both and getting a little information about you. So let's start with Greg. Can you tell us how long you have been the fire chief?
Well, I was recruited and started on February 3rd, 1975. So add that up, it's about, I guess, a little over 48 years I've been with the fire department, and I've been the chief since January 1st of 1998.
What made you join the fire department? How did you get involved in the fire service?
There was a couple of key factors in that. One of them, my grandfather was the fire chief many, many years ago in Wilmer, Minnesota, back in the 30s. And then I came to work in the city of Mound for Tonka Toys, which was very supportive of the fire department, and there was about a dozen of us that worked there at Tonka Toys, and they were so supportive with finances and allowed firefighters to attend calls during the workday. So we had great response times, and I got recruited by some of my coworkers, and that's how I ended up here on Mound Fire.
So how have things changed since you became fire chief with call volume, equipment, training, different protocols?
Well, there's a couple of things that have really come to the forefront, and one of them is the call types. When I first started here at the fire department, were primarily structure fires and fires. And actually, fires are only about 10% of our business now. So the call types have changed dramatically. We do all kinds of rescue and medicals and EMS, all the way from cardiac arrest to cold water rescue. So that's one of the biggest changes. Call volumes have gone up. When I started, there were about 150 a year, and now last year we're at 723, so we're out the door about twice a day. What hasn't changed is the quality of the people, because that's our biggest asset.
So Jack, when did you join the fire department, and what was the process at that time, and how has that process changed?
Well, I joined in February 2, 1960, because my dad was in here, and I've been chasing this fire department since I was 3.5 years old. So when I got to be 21, this is where I'm going to be. When I first joined, we would probably have 40 calls a year. When I left, we were at about 350 or so. He ain't going to like this, but I was his training officer when he joined in 75. So I brought him up. And then I was captain of engine company, then training officer, and then assistant chief.
So what are some of your favorite memories?
I think it's the fact that I helped take care of the community. I loved it. I know it's hard to pinpoint one, but I remember because of my training, a little neighborhood kid was choking, and her sisters come running up, "We need help, we need help." And I ran down there, and Dwayne Platzer was with me. I said, "Dwayne, call 911, and I got a hold of the kid, and I gave him a pump, a Heimlich maneuver, and up popped apples and everything else, and that was a wonderful feeling. And we had a drowning down in Crystal Bay. So the cops came up and they grabbed what they thought was the inhalator and stuff like that, and they took off to go down to Navarre down there. I looked back and I said, they haven't got the right equipment. So I took off with that truck. And as I pulled up there and jammed on the brakes, those guys come running up the hill to get into the squad car, and I handed them the inhalator. And then that little kid, after a little bit, started crying. And that was a wonderful feeling, too.
Yes, it was.
Yep.
I bet it was.
And so those are a couple of things I can really remember well, where I served the community, the tornado in 65, and I reported here, and the first thing they said was, line up some cars. We only have one ambulance out here. Line up some cars, station wagons, so we can haul people. And then they said, get over to Island Park, so I went over there. I was bringing people back on doors. I drove in this door right here, and in that time, this station was converted to a field hospital in less than 15 minutes. And we had 3 doctors on duty and a couple of nurses, and all of the kids, a lot of the kids from the firemen were here. I know my sister was here, and he said, I'm not going. My dad says, yes, you are. You're not staying home. So she learned about the fire department that night too. The National Guard came out here later on, and we set up points that had to people lived out there had to check in here first before they could go that way. And that stayed like that for about 2 weeks, you know, till it was cleaned.
So tell us about your dad, Andy Farness.
My dad came up in this country from Iowa in about 1917 or 18, something like that. And he got to know people around here, and the fire department was in its organization for it. So he got friends, became a fireman. Not a charter member. That was started in 23. He joined in 30.
And how long was Andy here?
My dad?
Yeah.
38 years.
38 years?
Yep.
So now that you're retired, been retired for a while, what do you miss the most about being on the fire department?
Well, I guess it's the people and the fact that I'm not going to these fires or calls. I enjoyed that, you know. And I was always one of the first ones here, you know, always the first or second guy all the time.
You have a long family history for the Farness family. Is there any other families that have a long history with Mound Fire Department, including maybe children and parents that are on, married couples, siblings?
Definitely.
Elquist.
People, you know, a lot of people in the area have heard of Alan Elma's, and, you know, that was started by Alan Elma Quist.
Well, you got to back up a little bit. He was Island Park.
That's right, he was Island
Yeah.
Park.
Mound annexed Island Park in 62. That fire department then became part of Mound.
Yeah, January 1st of 1963.
Okay.
Island Park had their own fire department, and Mound had their own fire department.
Oh, interesting.
And those 2 fire departments merged. And of course, at the time, both fire departments thought they were the best in the world. And so the merger did not go all that smooth. But after a period of transition, everything turned out fine. But one of the members of the Island Park Fire Department was Al Quist. They had daughters that married firefighters. And so the Quists, the Bryce family, which has had a long-standing tradition on the fire department. Donnie Bryce was the chief. His brother's sons have been on the department still today. And then the Palms currently on the department, there are 4 of them, and they're grandsons of the Quists. One of the nice things about having family members like that is they really understand commitment, participation, and what it's all about. It really helps an organization carry on that tradition.
Well, let's talk about the Mound Fire Department turning 100 years old. And let's start by talking about how did the Mound Fire Department get established?
Say like 1922, there was a bad fire in town. We had no department. And it was either Kaler's or Johnson's, one of the 2, store. So they called St. Bonnie. They had a fire department. And they drove down the railroad tracks to fight the fire. That's what started it. We got to get a fire department. And then they sat down and worked on that. And this was organized in December of 23. I think it was 19 guys. We were charter members. And Frank Weiland was 1 month away from being a charter member. And that's the guy I took his spot when he retired. Our first truck was a Piercero. Piercero was a big car. And a lot of people took those big cars with long wheelbases and made fire trucks out of them. So that's what we did. They put some tanks on it and had soda and acid is what it was. You had to be very careful because a lot of guys, we didn't have gear like we got today. they'd have clothes on like this here. When they got home, they had no clothes because the soda and acid ate them all up. We got this truck in 30, well, yeah, 30. There was 13 of these trucks made. The city of Chicago took 12. We got the 13th one. And they're small like this here. This has got a 500-gallon pump on it. And that's what we had from then until 1940 when we got a 44 truck.
How did the Mound Fire Department get notified when there was emergency 100 years ago, and how has that changed?
Whoever had the problem would call in their telephone or whatever to the switchboard located across from about where the Catholic Church is now. That was the switchboard. And Caroline Sweeney was the lady. So then she would set the siren off right from there. That's the only way. And so we all answered by the siren. And it was still that way when I joined in 1960. And then we got a new phone system, so everybody got private lines. So when there was a call, the phone would ring steady, not intermittently steady, until the fireman took it off the hook. And then it would ring up here too. So somebody would take the information down, and somebody'd have to stay on the phone to relay it when somebody got up to the station to write it on the board what it was. After that, we got the pager system. I think that started in '73.
We have multiple ways of getting our calls now. We have our pagers and we have our cell phones. All of us have an app.
Yep.
And we get the call information and the address and a lot of the call details on our phones today. So there's two ways of notification, these and our phones today. So it's evolved, it's a lot different.
So tell us about the memorable fires. Tell us about one or two of them.
Well, I think for this department, our first memorable fire was when the Hotel Del Otero burnt in Spring Park in about 43 or 44. And this truck, my dad took this truck and drove it right into the water down at Spring Park, and it pumped for 17 hours. And so I think that was the first bad memorable one. And then the one I really remember, is when the school burned on Labor Day night, 1963. That was a big, big fire, downtown Mound. And then when Tipi-Wakan burned, which is now where, what's the name of that?
Lake Winds.
Lake Winds.
Okay.
That was a big camp, Tipi-Wakan. And it was just before Labor Day in '69. And the plumbers were in there plumbing the building. No walls. And it started on fire. We got up there, the first truck, I was on it. Bob Miner, Bob Janachek, and myself were on the first line. And every minute we had to step in fog line to cool our rubber gear off because we thought they were going to melt, you know. And the truck was parked on a hydrant, and it was so hot it melted the bubble on the roof that goes around like this. It melted the bubble, and the bulb, you know, quit working because it couldn't turn.
Yeah.
You know. Since then, there's probably been others that you probably know more about than I do.
Well, one of the ones I remember very vividly was the lumber yard over in Spring Park, which was likely early 80s.
Yep.
Because we did have our other ladder truck, and there was so much Class A materials, the lumber yard, it got going really good before anybody even called it in, and it was just fortunately there was no injuries or no loss of life, but in terms of fire, just simply the size of the fire, it was quite a sight. It was incredible, and several fire departments we worked it and got it out. Nobody got hurt, but that was one of the ones I remember very clearly.
So speaking of fires, the fire station. How has this fire station evolved to accommodate more calls, more firefighters, more training, more equipment?
Well, the old station that we were in, I think was built in about 1955. So it had been here about 50 years. And the firefighters themselves had built some additions on that. Jack and others added on a training room and some things over the years, and it was really it was past time to replace it. Simply because we had apparatus, you couldn't hardly walk between fire trucks. We used to joke because if you washed one, you washed them all because everything got wet. They were so close together. And so because we were serving like 5 communities at the time, we just needed more apparatus space. As we became more diversified, we had 2 boats. Plus we needed a much larger training room. We had a staff of about 47 and we needed space for training. This building here is 33,000 square feet, and the fire department essentially owns and operates 22,000 square feet of it, so about 2/3.
So for the centennial year, can you tell us what events have been planned or enhanced to recognize the centennial?
We have, our fish fry, of course. We had over 3,000 people here. We sold some mugs and T-shirts, and, the community's great to come out and support us. For 100 years, we have a new engine, a new Pierce engine on order that's going to come around October 1st. We're hopeful that it's here for our open house, which I believe is on October 4th. Part of that, we're going to do a apparatus housing ceremony where you actually physically push the apparatus into the station.
How did the fish fry start?
Well, we started that in 1951 to get some money. We needed more. We only get so much money from the city, and that don't give you anything to do anything with, because we got to buy a lot of stuff ourselves, which is not in the budget. So they started the fish fry, and we used to catch the fish ourselves, clean them, and it was held out at the Sportsman's Club 2 miles west.
Oh, okay.
So if you didn't fish, you had to clean. That's the way the rule was. So we had it out there for 2 years before we got this station up here. I suppose the first time around in 1951, we probably had 300 people, maybe, something like that. It was crowded. They had a little kitchen out there at the Sportsman's Club. It was about as big as this paper, and we got to fry fish in there and get stuff out of there and put it on a table. Then, and I think it was about 68, after we were all together, we started buying our fish then instead of catching them. And they'd all be waiting for us. We'd come up here at night, back in, and people were there taking it out, and they had to clean the fish and get ready the next day for the fish fry,
The firefighters, as Jack said, would catch the fish. But they gave a prize, they gave a cash prize, like 3 different categories, first, second, and third, for those that caught the most fish. And it was historically, I think it was Johnny Collins, was one of them that, and back then, the first prize for catching the most fish was $10.
Yeah.
And $10 back then was a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
That was in the minutes for several years they did that. And so prior to buying the fish, as today, we buy over 2,000 pounds of fish.
Okay. Yeah.
But back then they were catching it, and they gave prize money, $10 to Johnny
great.
Collins. His name was in there multiple years in a row for catching the most fish.
Johnny Collins had Collins Ornamental Ironworks in Spring Park, and he knew people all over. And he was good with his money and buy him drinks and stuff like that. And they brought in fish and brought in fish and brought in fish. That's why he won all the time. He probably didn't even know what a fishing rod was.
So where do you see the Mound Fire Department going into the future?
Well, I can tell you that the current model with essentially 40 paid on call or volunteer firefighters is the most cost-effective model out there. Our goal is to keep that business model going as long as possible. I think our future is probably evolving with St. Bonnie Fire to make sure we do a great job of serving Minnetrista as it grows. And so I could see some sort of a partnership with St. Bonnie.
And that's understandable, because just like all the fire departments around here, we started out with 10 calls a year, and now we're into the thousands. So, we have got to adapt. And I will say one thing, you have a supportive community, and you are unique that you have been able to have paid on call for so long.
I'd like to say a lot of that can be blamed onto him.
Blamed on
He
him?
is keeping this together. He makes sure that these guys understand what they have to do, and they're coming into it with the fact that I want to do it. And I know when I was still on and we'd interview somebody, we'd tell them, these are going to be your best friends, because you're going to be here at least 20 years. Your friends out there will be your lifetime friends, but these are your best friends here. And we got stuff to do here to keep this going, and he's doing it.
We have the family tradition of the Palms and the Bryces and the Wakeys and the Pounders, and they understand the fire service and they're committed, and it makes my job easier because those guys really understand what it takes.
What are you both most proud of? One thing.
I guess I'm just proud of the fact that I belong to this fire department, period. This is the best organization in the city of Mound and always has been. Yet don't give up.
What I would say is the quality of our service, the consistency of how well we do, and it's all based on the quality of our people, the firefighters. It's really, so I would say I'm the most proud of our staff. Recruiting, hiring, training really good quality people. That's really what I'm most proud of.
So thank you both for joining us today. This was really enjoyable. I think our citizens are going to love watching this segment, and good luck with all the Centennial festivities.
If you're buzzed and doing this to make yourself feel okay to drive, you're not okay to drive.
Welcome back to First Responder TV. On Safety Source, we'd like to introduce you to the new Long Lake Fire Chief Mike Highland at the Controlled House Burn Training in Long Lake.
Today we're going to be doing NFPA 1403 live burn and acquired structure. This is dangerous training. We have to be on our A game all day today.
This is a great opportunity. It doesn't come along very often where we get a house of training like this. The experience is invaluable, especially for the new people, even as far as putting their gear on and wearing a pack and just experiencing it for your first time. And then after you get past that point, then we can work on tactics and pulling hose and things of that nature.
That looks pretty good, guys. Let's go.
Well, it's really hot in there. You got to stay low and go in there. It's kind of neat. You got to take a second look around. It's a spectacular view, and you keep down and go underneath the fire, and then we push it back and knock it down and ventilate to get all the gases and smoke out.
Just a little more vent out the window.
Hydraulic is just using water. If you spray it out the window in a certain pattern, it blows the smoke right out the window. It doesn't only blow the smoke out, it cools it down to make it a more tenable environment in there.
All right, I think we can clear.
The guy in the nozzle's focused in on the fire, and you got to have guys behind you looking around and watching your back, pulling line for you.
Where are you? Going to the kitchen.
You can go to the training towers and stuff, but there's nothing like the experience of the wood crackling and the thick black smoke. You can't see anything, you can't hear anything. If you haven't been in a fire, it's just the fact of being used to going in there with your equipment on and feeling comfortable. Long Lake is a solid fire department. I'm really proud to be a part of it, but like I said, practice like this is key to making us a successful department.
You're not going to get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff.
Mama!
Like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat.
Recently, the LMCC safety expert and producer of First Responder TV, Chris Vogt, moved to Texas. We would like to share some of the highlights of his 10 years as a master of disaster.
The safety expert was an idea that actually predates First Responder TV.
And now it's time for Lake Minnetonka's favorite champion of safety, protector of humankind, and master of avoiding danger, the LMCC's safety expert.
Now again, as I said before, I am a world-renowned safety expert. I would never go to the end of this driveway as a snowplow is coming through. Did I just say snowplow?
Is that the LMCC safety expert? What's he doing out here?
From time to time, our member cities will come to us and they'll want us to do a public service announcement or our safety piece on something like bike safety or snowplow safety or severe weather safety. One of the things that you always run into with that is okay, how do you make that interesting and you're going to keep the viewer's attention? That's really how the safety expert was born.
Here we are at the Great Minnesota Get-Together. Your favorite master of avoiding danger is here to meet his fans before the start of the Governor's Fire Prevention Day.
Looks like we're a little bit further than even the old safety expert thought. Was that a coyote? You know, it was probably just a situation where the old state fair knew I had a giant fan club and wanted to have a whole separate parking lot for all my fans. Well, you know what? I'm excited. It's time to get ready to meet my fans. This is going to be a lot of fun. Time for about 50 push-ups. 1. Oh yeah, nice to meet you. 2. You'd like an autograph? Sure. Keep reaching for the safety vest. The master of avoiding danger. AKA the protector of humankind. 50. AKA the safety expert. Camera operator, send them in. Nobody's here. Oh, wait, there's a fan now. Hi, sir. Do you want me to sign this? No? Okay. Let's have some fun, entertainment, and education with these type of segments. And really kind of the bit always is that he is the so-called safety expert, but really he doesn't know anything, and it's kind of up to either the camera operator or the kids or the people you're doing stuff with to really actually educate the safety expert on what's the right way and how to stay safe. But I think the one that really stands out to me is the Safety Patrol Boot Camp that we did several years ago at Shirley Hills Elementary. Attention, cadets. Mr. Halverson says you're the best of the best. We'll see about that. It's my job to make sure that you're the best in the state of Minnesota, where all of this began. Perhaps even the United States, the world, or maybe, just maybe, in the solar system. It's time to see if you are all physically fit. This will not be easy, and some of you may not make it. Are you guys up for the challenge?
Yes, safety expert.
Great. Let's get to it. Left foot, red. Go, go, go. Hit, hit, hit. Ah! Marcus, you are out of there. Whoa, guys, no reason to get upset. We're just playing a friendly game of dodgeball, right? Oh, snack time.
Thank you for watching First Responder TV, your local public safety source. If you have an idea for a segment or an upcoming fire prevention or life safety event, please let us know. This is Kellie Murphy-Ringate giving you information you can use, share, and to live by. See you next time.